Welcome to Big Papa Rob Podcast Story Rewind. I'm Big Papa Rob. Here I rewind the story of a person, place, or thing and tell you where it originated from. Today's story is about a couple that had a remarkable love story to the end on the Titanic. I also discovered during my investigation of this story that this couple also has ties to the CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush, which you know perished in a submersible going to the Titanic in recent weeks. The story this week will be about a couple that perished on the Titanic. This couple's devoted love for one another in their final moments was captured in the 1997 blockbuster Titanic, as the older couple holding on to each other in bed while the room begins to flood. The actual events of their true story is even more moving, showing their devotion to one another. Mrs. Ida Strauss was safely on a lifeboat, assuming Mr. Isidore Strauss was following her on board. But when her husband refused to get on the lifeboat, stating to the ship's officer, "No, until I see every woman and child on board this ship in a lifeboat, I will not enter a lifeboat myself." When seeing that her husband would not board the lifeboat, Miss Strauss refused to stay on the lifeboat without him. She was heard telling her husband, "As we have lived together, we will die together. I will go down in your arms." Miss Strauss put her maid Ellen Bird on the lifeboat, giving Ellen her fur coat, telling her, "I won't be needing it. Please take it with you. Keep yourself warm until you're rescued." Eyewitnesses state the couple was last seen standing arm in arm on the deck. When a great wave came over port side of the ship, Mr. Strauss was seen wrapping his arms around his wife as they were swept into the sea. Let's rewind the early beginnings of the love story for Mr. and Miss Strauss. Isidore Strauss was born in Germany in 1845 to Lazarus Strauss and his second wife and first cousin, Sarah Strauss. He was the first of 5 siblings, and they immigrated to the United States in 1854. Ida, who was born Rosalie Ida Blund, was also born in Germany in 1849 to Nathan Blund and his wife Wilhelmine Blund. She was the 5th of 7 siblings. Her family immigrated to the United States in 1849 as well. Both families were Jewish. The Strauss family settled in Columbus, Georgia, whereas the Blund family settled in New York. After the Civil War, the Strauss family moved to New York City, where Lazarus Strauss, Isidore's father, convinced Roland Macy, founder of Macy's department store, to allow him to open a L. Strauss & Son crockery department in the basement of his store. Isidore worked at L. Strauss & Sons, which became the glass and china department at Macy's. In 1866, Isidore Strauss met Ida Blund through a business associate of her uncle in New York when she was 17 and he was 21. The friendship turned into romance, and they were married in 1871. In 1872, Jessie, the first of their children, was born, followed by Clarence, who died at infancy. Percy was born in 1876, followed by Sarah in 1878, then Mimi in 1880, then Herbert in 1881, followed by the youngest, Vivian, in 1886. In 1888, Isidore and his brother Nathan became partners with Roland Macy. In 1893, they bought controlling interest in another company, Welsher and Abraham, and renamed it to Abraham and Strauss. In 1895, he and his brother Nathan purchased R.H. Macy and Company from the Macy family. Isidore was elected a U.S. Congressman in January of 1894 till March of 1895 as a Democratic representative of New York's 15th Congressional District to complete the term of Ashbel Finch, who had resigned. He didn't enjoy his brief time in Congress and chose not to run for re-election in November of 1894. He also declined an offer from the U.S. President Grover Cleveland for the role of Postmaster General. Isidore was a leader in American Jewish communities and felt a strong responsibility towards new immigrants. He also founded a settlement house community center. Isidore was the president of Educational Alliance and prominent worker in charitable and educational movements. The Educational Alliance helped Eastern European Jews integrate into the workforce and learn English. To this day, the Educational Alliance is still thriving. His great-grandchildren attended nursery there. Isidore and Ida were known to be a very loving couple, often seen in public holding hands, kissing, and hugging, which was very unheard of for people of their status and wealth at the time. When they were apart due to Isidore's work, the couple would exchange letters daily. They were also frequent travelers and decided to escape the New York winters of 1911 to 1912 to travel abroad in Europe. By spring, they were ready to return to New York, and Isidore moved their departure date up to April and booked passage on the Titanic in first-class cabin. They boarded the boat with Ida's maid Ellen Bird and Isidore's manservant John Farthing. As you know, the Titanic struck an iceberg and the Strasses perished in each other's arms. Isidore's body was recovered, and with him a locket inscribed their initials and a photo of two of their children. His body was entered into the family vault in New York. Unfortunately, Ida's remains was never found. John Farthing perished on the Titanic and his body was never recovered. Ellen Bird was rescued and survived the Titanic. Ellen tried to give Miss Strauss's fur coat back to the family, specifically to Sarah Strauss, the oldest daughter. Sarah told Ellen that Ida had given her the coat and she should keep it. Their story and memory have not only been recorded in the 1997 Titanic, but it was also depicted in the 1953 film Titanic and in the 1958 film A Night to Remember. A book was also written, A Titanic Love Story, Ida and Isidore Strauss, published in 2012. They also became popular figures amongst the Jewish Americans. A Jewish song was written, The Titanic Disaster, describing their story. It was a popular Yiddish folk song. There are multiple memorials to the couple across New York City, including a monument in Strauss Park on Manhattan's Upper West Side. There is also a plaque at the Macy's flagship store that pays tribute to the couple. The plaque reads, "Their lives were beautiful and their deaths glorious." There is also a school in New York named after the Strausses. When choosing this story, I didn't know that the Strausses had a connection with the most recent story related to the Titanic. OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush was married to the great-great-granddaughter of Isidore and Ida Strauss. Her name is Wendy Rush. As you know, the Titan, a submersible of OceanGate expeditions, set out to visit the wreckage of the Titanic on June 16th of this year. On June 18th, the Titan descended into the waters and they lost communication with the Titan. Coast Guard found debris field consistent with an implosion of the vessel on June 22nd. All 5 people, including Stockton Rush, the husband of Wendy Rush, perished in the implosion near the Titanic. The debris field of the Titan is 1,600 feet away from the Titanic wreckage. We give our condolences to the families of the Titan tragedy. Thank you for listening today. I hope you come back next week for my next story. The stories will be ever-changing, from historical origins of many things and stories of people you may not know their history. And again, I'm Big Papa Rob, and this was a Story Rewind, an independent podcast. Story Rewind is produced by Big Papa Rob, edited by my beautiful wife Amanda, aka Big Mama. Today's music was Powerful Stylish Stomp Rock by Mark July from Pixabay. This was a Big Papa Rob podcast 2023.